Hello, this is Mark Werawath. A lot of folks have been asking me about this latest news about General Motors and Tesla partnering on the sharing of the NACS connector, which is the North American connector standard for electric vehicles, and how it basically follows on the similar discussion and agreement held between Ford and Tesla on the same topic. So between Ford and General Motors, it's two OEM manufacturers who are basically collaborating now with Tesla to incorporate the NACS connector on future vehicles and creating a set of adapters for existing vehicles. And this presentation is trying to understand and tease out some of the implications and some of the conclusions and maybe some extrapolations from those announcements. So let's get started. So again, NACS is the North American charging standard from Tesla. It's been developed by Tesla for the last 10 or 12 years. Basically, it looks like this on the right-hand side. The Tesla supercharger connector basically supports both AC and DC charging. So that means level 2 and DC fast charge, right? With speeds of up to 350 kilowatts is my understanding. What's interesting about Tesla is that from the beginning, they've supported auto affiliation, which means your car pulls up and you plug in, and the Tesla supercharger automatically knows who you are, what car what car is in front of it, and has all the information about that car, as well as auto provisioning, which means that the billing, any kind of billing implications have already been set up as well. No need to scan a credit card, no need to slide dollars in, no need to do any other financial transactions because it's automatically provisioned as arguably it should be, right? Which hopefully every super fast charger in the in competitive markets would also do the same thing. It supports session energy management, right? So the energy delivered is a function of what is the state of charge of the vehicle, as well as the temperature and a whole bunch of other things specific to the battery. And that charging curve is unique to each vehicle and each situation. So what's also nice is my understanding Tesla's connector supports vehicle to load and vehicle to grid operations, which is two-way energy transfer. It is both, and this is key, it is both the hardware and software implementation. So in that sense, Tesla had a huge advantage from the beginning. They defined both ends of this system, if you will, the vehicle side and the supercharger, right, the EVSE. By defining both sides in a proprietary protocol, they could optimize everything and make it both seamless as well as robust. And it's become the robust standard of the industry. How do we know? Well, we can compare it to some of its competitors. So on the left-hand side, you see Tesla superchargers, which have a fantastic reputation of well over 95, and I'm told even as close to 99% reliability in the field. So you have a 99% chance that the Tesla supercharger you're hooking up to will work the first time, okay? As a user of CCS, I'm very familiar with the right-hand scenario, which is these kind of green and white Electrify America superchargers. And I can tell you from personal experience that the reliability is closer to 50 to 60%. So you have at best a 2/3 chance that the supercharger you're trying to use, the Electrify America charger, will actually work the first time, if at all. Now, it's out for a lot of reasons. Credit card readers don't work. Connectivity to the network is down. Power is modulated downward. I've seen 350 kilowatt chargers from Electrify America be downgraded to 50 kilowatts or less simply because of circumstances in the install or the operation at that moment. I've seen more than my fair share of technicians and mechanics working on these chargers in the field, and they seem overwhelmed and largely pretty tired of fixing what seems to be repetitive problems over the many years that these have been installed. This is more than a couple of years now. Ironically, we see this with Walmart in the background. Their favorite locations, at least in the Midwest, seem to be in Walmart outlots and parking lots. CCS is pretty robust in terms of its locations across the country. Places like Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas are particularly devoid of coverage but generally the rest of the country, especially the coasts, and I live in Chicago or in the Chicago area, we are reasonably well covered. So I can easily go to Michigan, I can go to Colorado, I can go to Wisconsin, and I've done all these things in my EV, including trips to Denver without any issue at all, with the exception of occasional delays, sometimes slow charging, and oftentimes finding broken chargers. And that's my Electrify America experience. Superchargers, on the other hand, from Tesla are more ubiquitous. I think you'll see in future slides that there's probably almost a 2-to-1 ratio between superchargers from Tesla and superchargers from Electrify America. But almost anywhere you want to go, including, I guess you can see here in Nebraska, Kansas, and South Dakota, has coverage. Now, what's the real issue here, right? The interoperability issue has always been, and this is as far back as I can remember, at least probably 10 years. The Tesla cars have had support for Tesla Level 2, obviously. Native meaning it's native to the vehicle. It was built into the car in the factory. So Level 2 and supercharging is native to the Tesla car. Using adapters, you can also use a generic Level 2 charger that you might find in the street or in a parking lot, as well as CCS style high-speed chargers. You can also use your Tesla design adapter on your Tesla car. So as you see, the Tesla has basically every type of charging available to it. No other car outside of Tesla has that, right? So example, GM and Ford, they have both made arrangements with Tesla now to access their superchargers. Level 2 has always been available, at least for many years now, using a very simple adapter for about $200 you can buy online. Those work fine, but that's only, again, for Level 2, sometimes known as a destination charger for Tesla. And of course, other CCS cars have had that available as well. Now, what's not available and has never been available is the supercharger network for GM, Ford, or any other CCS car. The reason I code GM and Ford in yellow is the yellow indicates that it's now promised, but I will make mention that it's not obviously delivered yet. These promises, as of this making of this video in mid-June 2023, those promises have not been fulfilled. In fact, those promises have not even been quantified as to when it'll be delivered. On the other hand, CCS other, which is vehicles like Hyundai and Kia and BMW, you name it, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Audi, they don't even have a promise for having any kind of adapter. So not only is it not available, it may never be available. Now, these other types of chargers, generic Level 2 chargers you see in the streets, CCS high-speed chargers like Electrify America, they are natively compatible and interoperable with GM, Ford, and all other CCS vehicles. So the issue has always been this, the Tesla superchargers. And for obvious reasons, this has been a huge competitive advantage for Tesla. It has helped them sell cars. And they've kept the supercharger network up until recently, uniquely available only to Tesla vehicles. Now, if you rewind maybe 5-6 months, Tesla talked about and announced something called a magic dock. So what is a magic dock, right? And excuse me for my irreverence here, but I'm going to say maybe or perhaps not so magic. In Q1 of 23, Tesla did partially roll out this magic dock, which allowed, you'll notice, a non-Tesla vehicle pulled up to a Tesla supercharger. If you look very carefully, there is a slight difference in the way this adapter looks. It has a special magic dock coupler attached to it, and it supposedly converted Tesla to CCS, right? Physically, as well as electronically, and as well as software. It's been rolled out in, I think, close to a dozen superchargers in the New York State area. And it's been stalled, in my mind, for several months because it hasn't gone any further. Now, no word yet about future rollout. In fact, suspiciously quiet in these announcements about what's happening with Magic Dock, if anything. The latest announcement implies that we're going to be going forward with platform-specific adapters to be carried by the user rather than captive on the supercharger. Now, if that's true, then what happened? Was the Magic Dock a failure? Are they canceling the Magic Dock? Is it an experiment that is going to be reversed? The rumors are and were that there were some compatibility issues, that the Magic Dock did not work on certain vehicles. And I can imagine why. You're talking about a complex hardware software platform. That handshake is not something that's trivial, and making that work under all conditions, under all vehicles that might plug into it. Imagine the myriad of, what is it, several dozen CCS vehicles out there on the road in the US today. Making all of them work consistently with the Magic Dock under all conditions. Obviously, it's a huge task. It's well beyond what Tesla originally did, where you had one platform, one EVSE, getting those to work together, controlling the software and how they operate on both sides was the key for Tesla's success. This Magic Dock might have been too much too soon, too complicated, and having platform-specific adapters seems to be what I'm hearing, at least now, in the announcements across the media. This is an ecosystem map to show you at least a flavor or a taste of how complex the ecosystem is for electric vehicles. So in the middle, you see EVs of all sorts, hybrid electrics, plug-in hybrid electrics, PHEVs, as well as BEVs, battery electrics. And amongst the battery electrics, we have companies like Smart and Tesla and Chery and Koda and Tata. Included also is you've got companies like Chrysler and Nissan who do both HEVs and BEVs, right? And companies like Kia that do all three. So they've got PHEVs, HEVs, and BEVs. So that's just this middle segment here of electric vehicle manufacturers. On the right, you have fleet vehicle manufacturers. On the left, you have battery manufacturers. On the bottom left, you have charging equipment manufacturers. On the bottom right, you have charging integrators and service providers such as Electrify America and GridPoint and Volta. Well, guess what? Tesla plays in four of these five segments. So they actually make battery electric vehicles, BEVs. They also make batteries. They've announced that they will be making batteries, whether that's for third-party consumption or themselves. They will be purchasing as well as building their own traction batteries for the future, right? On the bottom left, you also see that they're a charging equipment manufacturer. They've been making their own, and some say the most reliable EVSEs for DC fast charge, period. And that reputation, I think, is what's driven both GM and Ford to partner with them to say, you know what, you've got the best charging stations, you've got the best network by far. And that is what's driving people very, very much towards working with Tesla for their charging needs, okay? So the implementation, the one protocol to support, only Tesla platforms, at least initially, right? You have the vehicle on the right, you have the EVSE on the left. You're looking at things like power capacity, handshake logic, availability, affiliation, provisioning, session power delivery, all of these things, right, being managed between the EVSE and the vehicle. In between, you see that, all EVSEs do some of these things. For example, the handshake, the energy transfer, the information critical to managing that energy transfer. But what isn't necessarily supported is affiliation and provisioning, which they're starting to do on certain CCS compatible EVSEs, but not many and not quickly. EVgo and General Motors, I think, has been the first to roll anything out. So I think already you see a 10 to 12 year advantage that Tesla has, meaning they started 10 to 12 years ago, and they controlled both sides of that pipe. So they were able to manage and engineer a complete, holistic, user-centered solution. And for that, everyone is, I'm sure, envious who's not in the Tesla ecosystem. Wally's is a great story. This happens to be Pontiac, Illinois. The Wally station there is about a year old, maybe a little less. They put up dozens and dozens of gas pumps, but also, I believe it was 6 EV charging stations from Tritium. Those 6 have been in operation now for less than 6 months, I believe. And from what I can tell online, they've had nothing but problems. When I pulled up about a month ago, I only had one of the 6 stations working, and nobody was even attempting to get them to work because the word on PlugShare was skip this stop altogether. The Wally's stations don't work. They're just highly unreliable. You can barely get them to work at all. And when they do work, they're very slow speed. I got this to work at a roughly 50 kilowatt rate, which is not great, but it's better than nothing. If you know Pontiac, you know that there's probably no high-speed DC fast charge anywhere within, say, a 60-mile radius. So it was either here or drive another 60 miles and get maybe another EVSE to hook up to. The reason I put this up here is not to criticize Wally's per se, but the fact that I had a side conversation with one of the employees asking him about this, and he says, yes, Wally's is very upset, and they are ready and planning to rip these out, even though they're less than a year old. And guess what? They're going to replace them with Tesla. Now, Tesla superchargers for a guy like me who has a CCS car has historically been pretty useless, right? And I was disappointed to hear that, well, okay, a CCS supercharger that was available, or at least on paper was available, is now going to be ripped out of the ground after less than a year. On the other hand, I guess now in hindsight, I can't blame Wally's whatsoever. Having unreliable, frustrating equipment is bad for them, bad for their business, bad for their customers. And, frankly, it makes no sense to keep broken equipment on a new site. So switching to Tesla is going to give them reliability. It's going to give Tesla owners accessibility, and maybe one day non-Tesla owners as well, with these various adapters, right, that will eventually come out. Some conclusions. I don't know. I don't want to be too crazy about this, but as CCS appears to be dead or dying, right? If indeed 2 major OEMs in the US have already switched their future plans to NACS, that means CCS has very little allegiance in the US, except for maybe some foreign suppliers. My guess is all future EVs in North America will need to support NACS, right? If that's the way the network is going to go, if that's where the major OEMs are going, the NACS adapters will be made. It looks to me like for each platform. So GM might have a NACS adapter, Ford, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, VW, etc. So I'm maybe jumping to conclusions here, but Magic Dock appears to be a failed experiment. If somebody would give us an update and tell us what they're doing, and if they say Magic Dock is going great, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Then tell me, why do we need these adapters? If Magic Dock works, why do we need adapters at all? If Magic Dock is going to be deployed from one end of the country to the other, and it truly, truly works, we as consumers, as users of these EVs, shouldn't have to carry an adapter at all, should we? So that would be the question I would ask Elon Musk if I had that chance. I have many other questions I'm sure I'll share with you in the next slide. Cars being sold in the future in North America with CCS will require the adapter or will eventually be outfitted with the NACS connector, which isn't much of a conclusion. We've been told that in press conferences and in various media outlets. So that's not much of a conclusion. However, it seems like DC fast charging will likely have in the future one flavor only in the US, and that would be the NACS flavor. What happens to the existing DC fast charge CCS networks is anyone's guess. I have no idea, but clearly they either become obsolete or they get converted over to NACS. That's all I can think of, right? Some questions. Who's going to make these adapters for Ford and GM? Are they going to make their own? Is there a third party who's going to make them? Is Tesla going to make these adapters, right? And are these the same adapters for all CCS cars, or will you have different adapters for each platform the way I implied 2 slides ago, right? What charging speeds will be supported, right? I mean, right now, Electrify America, when it works, it supports 350 kilowatts. Most of I think it's the V2 and V3 superchargers can go at least up to 250 kilowatts. What can we expect from these adapters? That would be a great question, right? When will these be available? What's the timeline? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years, right? How much will they cost? The typical level 2 adapter that I bought for my CCS car, right? Tesla adapter was about $150. So Is that what we can expect, or will it be much more? What about other CCS car companies? Chrysler, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, BMW, Hyundai, Kia, Nissan, Mini, and others, right? Volvo, right? Volvo's coming on strong with some really beautiful vehicles. The EX30 looks great. What about them? Are they going to have to do one at a time agreements, and therefore individually tailored adapters for each platform? Or again, will we have one standard adapter? And again, why do we need any of these agreements and adapters if indeed the magic adapter is already out there, the magic dock is already out there working, right? How fast will the Tesla network itself support Ford and GM and hopefully others, right? So is it more than just the adapter? Does the network itself have to be adapter compatible, and do they need to be upgraded, and for how long? Will it be done in 6 months, within a year? Is it one by one? Is it a hardware upgrade? Is it a software upgrade? That's not clear at all, right? So why are some superchargers apparently being equipped and not others? Is that simply because of age and what version they're running of software? I guess that would be a question as well. Will eventually every supercharger be able to charge every car in America? I mean, that's a simple statement to make. I know it's a very difficult thing to achieve. Is that the goal? Is that where we're going? Every Tesla supercharger able to charge every CCS equipped, as well as obviously Tesla equipped vehicle in the country, period, end of discussion. That would be amazing. But, you know, with an adapter or without one, if the car is native with the NACS adapter, fantastic, easier, of course. With an adapter for the older cars like mine, and like any other car that's current, any other CCS car on the road today, by definition, does not have a NACS adapter. Will you support every one of them, right? The US government defines CCS as the standard, right? So now what? It's going to be funded according to the law. It's the new energy vehicle connector standard for the United States. So will that be amended? Will that be changed? Who's going to change it? Has the government agreed? Who's on board? And oh, by the way, when they do agree, what's the impact on companies like Electrify America and EVgo? Are they on board? Are they going to make the changes as well? And what's their timeline? When will GM and Ford and other vehicles start using the NACS connector natively, right? I was told the next platform. Well, the next platform for GM might be next year, it might be 5 years from now. It depends on how you define the next platform, right? So those are the questions I have. In summary, adapt or die, right? So this is a difficult time. Obviously, this is an inflection point. This is going to change the direction of electric vehicle charging in America. It's going to be disruptive for a while. It's going to be confusing to many. I am assuming all CCS associated hardware and software will eventually have to switch over to NACS. If all the major vehicles are going in that direction, it makes no sense for anyone, whether it's DC fast charging operators, anyone owning the equipment, EV owners, car companies, they're all going to have to get on board. This is apparently the way of the future. And you know, I'm all behind it. I just want a whole lot more answers, and I want assurances that the legacy cars, the cars that have been purchased in the last 5 years and maybe for the next couple that are CCS equipped, won't be left behind in this massive change. So with that, thank you very much.